Welcome back to the channel. I've brought my notes because Lizzie has things to say, and today we are going to be talking about the gap between what is being said online and in the streets, as it were, versus the lived reality of the education system right now. Hi guys, I'm Lizz. I'm a neurodivergent parenting coach. I'm a hippie woo-woo lover. I'm an AUDHDer and I'm very much a Gen Xer. I am here questioning the narrative and bearing witness to the events that are unfolding for our children and us as a collective right now, and the culture of the UK currently. I'd love it if you could join me, so subscribe. So there's currently a big gap between what is being said online and the actual reality of lived experience of children struggling to get into school each and every day. And this isn't about opinions. This is about lived reality. Everybody can have an opinion. There are some lovely sayings around that. It doesn't mean your opinion is correct for everybody. It is possible for two things to be correct at once, because it's going to work for some people and it's not going to work for other people. Something I kept asking myself, and I see it a lot in my coaching clients, is how much damage am I causing my child by forcing them into school? And it's often encompassed by a huge amount of guilt, because we are conditioned and taught to take our children to school. Most of us actually went to school growing up, and we saw it as perhaps not the best thing, but it was the correct way to gain an education. And whilst it perhaps wasn't perfect, I think back, certainly for me in the 90s, there was something to be said for the way that teachers had authority and time and space to actually get to know each of us much more as individuals than they do today. Parents today question themselves as to, should I be following this societal rule of sending them to education versus witnessing their children completely falling apart? And I'm not being dramatic. We have got children that go from being, little outgoing chatterboxes as youngsters to throwing themselves on the ground and just bawling their eyes out because they can't cope with going into school. I remember witnessing this for the very first time when my eldest was young, actually. And there was a young lad that didn't want to go into the first school that my son attended. So they were babies that, we're talking all under, 8 years old. And this young lad, every morning, his mum had the same struggle. And I never understood what the problem was. I didn't judge because I didn't know this person. But as I've gone on through my own journey, I realized that actually this child had an extreme fear of coming into school, despite the fact that the school was great. And it's not the teachers that are the problem. And I'm certainly not advocating for teacher blame. I truly believe that over the years, the government has ruined the education system and put so much pressure on teachers and head teachers and TAs and everybody around to tick boxes for attendance and tick boxes for SATs and GCSEs and all those sorts of things. And I think it's completely lost the entire point of education, which is to actually help our children learn, right? We're trying to educate them for the future. And what we're doing is putting a lot of our children off of it completely, especially our neurodivergent children. And I think it's a real travesty. So if you are one of those parents, mums, dads, grandparents, carers who is trying to decide whether what you're doing is the correct way forward, I think you know the answer to that yourself. I think most people do. And it's a case of trying not to be gaslit into believing something else. And it's also a very, very personal choice about how much fighting you feel able to do. Because for me personally, with my son, we kept going because he desperately wanted to be in school. he didn't understand necessarily the concept of being home educated, and he's autistic and felt that he should be in school. So I went along with it. Now, there is a big part of me that wishes that I had trumped that, but I was also trying to fulfill his wishes because he was a growing teenager. He had his own wants and needs, and I believed that, he could make a good decision. I think perhaps I should have been stronger, especially in the last 2 years, and have taken him out of school to home educate him. However, I know better now, so I do better now. Hence, with my youngest, we tried secondary school. She fell apart. I said enough, and I listened to my intuition straight away on that one, because 7 years of battling for my son having reasonable adjustments, like, for instance, just having a card to say he can go to the toilet, had completely taken it out of me. My mental health was down the pan, and I personally had got to the end point. So I think we all know when we get to that point. We all know what we do and don't need and what our kids can and can't handle. And I would say that, is school helping or hurting our children is very much down to an individual's choice and an individual's experience, and who you have in the school that is actively helping, because it's kind of a postcode lottery, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Let me know if you feel like the entire system needs taking back 20 or 30 years with like some positive changes on top of it. Because I'm not saying we need to go back completely to how it was then. I think we do need advancements and moving forward. However, I don't think what we have right now is working. It's an incredibly nuanced conversation, isn't it? Let me know your perspective down in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Much love.